Hi, I'm Chris Bishop and welcome to this CNBC Africa special. We're in Abidjan, the capital of Côte d'Ivoire, a country that's been through a lot in the last decade. It went through unrest, a civil war, but now it's got a growth rate that's the envy of Africa, if not the world, more than 8%. Now we're here for the European Union Africa Forum, a place where issues are being talked about on how to funnel private investment into Africa. The 6th EU-Africa Business Forum kicked off at the Palais de la Culture in Abidjan, ahead of the summit of heads of states and governments in Côte d'Ivoire. The theme this year, investing in job creation for youth. Leaders from Africa and Europe have their work cut out for them as they explore ways to get Africa's young population to work. The emphasis on investing in job creation for the youth, and especially women, is key to driving inclusive growth and development for Africa. And this was the focus of the high-level panel at the forum.
We all agree that we need to create in Africa substantial millions of jobs, sustainable, decent, more than decent actually, sustainable, as a part of, let's say, a growth in Africa, which is generating also jobs, which is not so evident because also in Europe there is growth, but this growth is not generating jobs. So we have, let's say, communalities. Therefore, first things, to be partner in sharing, analyzing, and identifying some, let's say, common solutions. It's not just a question of transfer of money. It's a question of designing together what are the relationship between the two neighbors, Europe and Africa.
So we have a major job crisis in Africa today. And so what we've got to really realize is that if we fix that particular problem, we will actually have a faster economic growth on the continent. Africa will grow by additional 10 to 20% in terms of its GDP if we are able to reduce the amount of job unemployment that we have in Africa today.
If we stop trying and thinking and talking about how we're going to empower the extraordinary talent, the human capital that Africa has, which the rest of the world is going to need, what happens if we actually stop talking and trying and start doing?
And in fact, we often associate youth employment, and sustainable growth as almost the key essential elements that we need to fight poverty. Now, poverty is the key objective of the ABE. It is the SDG number 1. It is written in the Cotonou, which is driving a number of other products that we lay out. So it is behind what we do. And when we mean job, we mean real employment, of course. We don't mean underemployment. We don't mean unproductive employment, but we mean growth.
We have to redefine together, and this is the purpose of this business forum, with the business, with the youth, with the institution, which is the most conducive environment in order to change the way of doing our common challenge in creating jobs. Therefore, an amount of money is there, a method is there, an experience is there, in order to de-risk, in order to think together, in order to reform also. The three elements are strictly linked.
Well, at this conference, investment to many people living here in Côte d'Ivoire is just a word. What it's all about is wealth creation and job creation. There's a large, young, educated population in Africa that don't have jobs. And that's what this conference is all about.
You have a lot of young people in rural areas that have nothing to do. Massive amount of youth unemployment. And when you look at terrorism in Africa today, the reason you have a lot of terrorism in Africa in many places is what I call a disaster triangle. So what do I mean by that? That means that in any area that you have these three factors, you got them operating as terrorism. First, extreme rural poverty. Second, you have high level of unemployment among the youth. And all the areas where you have climate and environmental degradation, they form themselves into this disaster triangle. And so really, if we do not address very fast the issue of youth unemployment, we're going to have social, economic, political fragility all across African countries.
I mean, the youth must take in their hand their destiny. Start-up financing, small and medium enterprises. You know, we set up with the African Development Bank this Boost Africa project, which is precisely a way to de-risk not the big investment, but to de-risk the ideas which in other parts of the world were born in a garage and then turned to be big business like Facebook and others. You know, there's a lot of garage here in Africa where ideas are also growing up. Let's give them the mean in order to turn that into business. We are doing this, and therefore we are trying to involve everybody. If this is decided just by a government, this will never happen.
What we are facing is how to bring together not only the financing side, but also the capacity building element. And for this, what we need to do is engage with the governments. It is in that partnership with the governments and then bringing the private sector and finance that we will succeed.
The challenge is that 40% of African people are young. And we have to make some steps to find jobs for these people. And you have two ways. Either you create companies to create jobs, either you make those people become entrepreneurs, because not everyone will be a salary. It's impossible. We have too much people to employ. So in this field, what is important for Africa? Africa does not transform much. The rate of transformation of natural resources to finished or industrialized product is lower than 10%. And this is a big problem.
Things which may seem sometimes weakness, for example, with extremely rapid growth of the population linked to demographic pressure, is also a huge asset, because you have quite a lot of young people who really want to develop their country. Obviously, there is an interest of all of us developing these countries also to avoid terrible disappointments linked to sometimes migration and terrible human experience. But I think we have to put and to pool forces to develop homegrown industry, economic sectors, and I think most of the economies of the continent, and we have this very direct experience in the countries where we operate. Many of these countries have these assets. Afterwards, it's about also building the institutions which enable also this potential, and we are here for that.
Well, one of the big issues at this conference in Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire is technology. We live in a digital world now, and any conference about investment has to reflect that.
I'm impressed to see so many very promising startups from African countries, from the European Union together. It's really impressive. Africa is full of creativity. 2 years ago, I took part in African Union Commission and the European Commission meeting in Addis Ababa. And when we discussed about survival issues, about drinking water, food, roads, democracy, people, they were interested. But when we started to talk about digital issues, people, they were really excited, because everybody wants to have this leapfrog, to jump over some kind of historical periods. And with digital, it's possible. And already then we decided to organize this business meeting dedicated also on digital during EU-Africa Summit in Abidjan.
And digitalization in Africa, we're looking at it as an enabler rather than disruptive, like some would say in other parts of the world. Again, we're very happy to see that these, for these two aspects, Africa is moving very well and moving forward.
E-commerce is a way to put together people which are far away in the countryside, in whatever African country, but which are products which are value added, which can reach the global market. It means people which are connecting in the net, over internet. It means the possibility to have health services which are done through internet. So it's not necessarily the fact to employ people in managing a project, but the number of people which are reached and therefore can then generate economic activity which are based to the services which are supplied by digital application is much used.
We see technology in agriculture to help farmers and farming to become more productive. We see IT in rural electrification as a way to charge people with mobile phones in order to get the electricity connections switch on and off. We see at IST pervasive in urban investments for the management of public services and so forth. So indeed, IST is a big cross-cutting sector. We frankly see a lot of jobs developing in agriculture and agro value chain. We have to get out from this trap of commodities. Products must be transformed, value must be organized and added on the spot, and then they can be sold. First of all, in the country, secondly, in the region, and thirdly, to Europe, to the Gulf, to China, wherever.
The Startup Fair was the digital centrepiece of the forum. The European Union selected 135 promising startups from Africa and the EU to showcase their technology and services to investors. The Africa EU Youth Lab, a modern think tank launched by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, aims to bring the best ideas from both continents to jointly develop concrete recommendations to the planned EU-Africa Startup Manifesto and the final declaration of the AU-EU Summit. Stay tuned. After the break, we'll be looking at young, bright African entrepreneurs, how investment can change their lives. Welcome back to this CNBC Africa special. I'm Chris Bishop in Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire. I'm here for a conference, the European Union Africa Forum. It's concentrated on how to raise investment for young entrepreneurs. Now, this is very unusual at this conference in the fact that entrepreneurs actually had a chance to pitch their ideas. Surely any young person's dream.
LifeBank helps hospitals find the essential medical products they need. So the first thing we do is get blood suppliers to list their product on our digital platform. Then we deploy this information, the supply information, to the hands of the hospital, and we help them save lives, save time, and save money. We also move the blood to them in the right condition, in 15 minutes, in Lagos, and we also maintain the cold chain of the product while we're moving it. One of the largest killer of women on the continent, actually in the developing world in general, is something called postpartum hemorrhage. Basically, a mom gives birth and then she starts bleeding, and she bleeds and bleeds and dies, and she can't find it. And if she doesn't find the blood she needs to replace the blood she's lost, she's going to die. So that's a problem. That's one of the biggest problems we're trying to solve, to ensure that when people in the hospitals need blood, they can get it.
Volcano is based in Senegal. What we do is that we teach people technology. We do it in two ways. We teach them in our offices, but the second most innovative way is that we teach them offline. We have developed a tool that allows them to get training in technology without internet. Basically, you have three products. You have the software, you have a USB key, and you have a box that allows them to get all the content that we developed offline.
My name is Hisham El Katem. I am from Morocco, and I am here to present Artisan Bazaar Startup, a platform for quality. We started this business about 6 months ago, and we started to sell many products in the US market, Japan, Australia, in the England and France. The startup was created with the vision to give opportunity to those without any. Artisan Bazaar give opportunity to small artisans in the remote area to reach broader audience. We connect small artisans with international markets in order to sell their products, their handmade product, in order to encourage them to have more income.
My name is Frederick Fifi Owusu.
What do you do?
I'm the founder of Price Drama, a company that is promoting price transparency in Africa. So my business is to help the African shopper find a good deal. I mean, in terms of price and in terms of how much time they spend in shopping. We actually launched the beta version in 2006, November. And so far we've actually concentrated in Ghana, but we have the site working in 5 other countries: Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, Egypt, and Mauritius. So now we've seen the traffic in actually Ghana coming up, because it's something new to Africans, and it will take a bit of time for the African shopper to get used to it.
The External Investment Plan is at the heart of the European Commission's engagement with Africa in a bid to promote inclusive growth, job creation and sustainable development. The ambitious plan aims to leverage over 44 billion euros of investment into Africa by 2020, with a 4.1 billion euro contribution from the European Commission. So what is this plan and what is the progress so far?
Well, we got it. We got it. The Parliament gave its agreement in July, as I promised to you. In September, we got the signature and everything. So the bill, in fact, the regulation of the European Union was approved on 27 September. The following day, because we do overlap, you know, we try to catch on time. The following day, we had the first strategic meeting, which approved the big strategic direction of the plan. And we must get that from the people that put the money in the fund. And after the 28th of September, we had the operational board on the 7th of November, where they approved the 5 investment windows. So we are now set, and next week we will launch the call to the financial institutions to receive the proposal for the financial products that will be the essence of the plan.
So January, the financial institutions will be presenting these proposals to the Commission. The Commission will analyze them looking at the additionality. So how much they are something different that could not have been done before this external investment plan was in place. And they will also be looking at what is the expected impact. So in terms of jobs, how many jobs will they be created, in what sectors, how many carbon molecules are going to be reduced in the emissions, all these aspects. So what is the expected impact? And on the basis of that, they will be making choices.
I mean, 44 billion, by the way, is a conservative estimate because it is the average. And certainly the factor of leverage that we can have in certain countries more solid, like Ethiopia, for example, is much bigger than in other countries like Niger, for example. So therefore, you know, is an average, could be more. It will be more, by the way. Now, this is what we can do today when we have decided to set up, and we are pooling the money in order to have a reasonable budget for the next couple of years. But if this instrument is taking off, we are ready to put other resources right now in order to, let's say, to develop it further. But we don't want to disinvest from ongoing programs, for example, which are helping countries in investing in education, in healthcare, in other infrastructure programs. So therefore, I think we have this amount of money which was available, let's say. We are ready to increase it, but let's first do it and spend it rightly, and then we'll see how we can do it.
The plan, you know, is not made only with this component, which is the financial aspects. The plan is also made with other 2 pillars. You remember, the second pillar is technical assistance, feeding into the first pillar, that is the finance with project preparation. So grants for project preparation so that they become bankable. And on the other side, this technical assistance is also deployed in order to make policy for investments conducive. I'm not saying fighting corruption because that's big, but certainly looking at red tape bureaucracy, simplification in the administration, increasing capacity in the administrations, making laws if necessary. So these are the three pillars, and the coordination of the three makes this plan so innovative and so interesting.
Well, what we are hearing is a lot of interest from the private sector. They are approaching the European Investment Bank asking how can they, through us, have access to one or the other of the windows, particularly in renewable energy and also in municipal infrastructure.
So far, pension fund must be prudent by definition because they are managing money of their own associated, which are to take care of their own solidity and stability, therefore, by definition, prudent. But we have started contact. They're starting being interested. Therefore, we will see after the first, let's say, portfolios, how this can develop. More than investment portfolio, there could be interest in equity participation. And this is due to the credibility and profitability of a project. We have contact with big foundations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They're interested, several pension funds and also investment funds. But let's go on and let's grow up. We are not, as European Union, allowed, for example, to launch bonds, Euro bonds in the market. Therefore, we are still working with instruments which are not fully on the financial market. Therefore, let's work. And we work also with the European Investment Bank in order to see whether joining forces will be able also to mobilize the European Investment Bank and the European financial institution. Agence Française de Développement, KfW from Germany, FEMU from the Netherlands, the Spanish agency, all together with blending, guarantee and mobilizing European money managed by the Commission and national money which is necessary in order to generate this multiplying factor can allow physically Europe to pass from billion to trillion tomorrow.
The 5 windows are renewable energy and climate change, micro, small and medium enterprises, which creates a lot of jobs, especially in fragile areas. Agriculture is #1 priority in this business forum. I would define this is the business forum of agriculture and agribusiness. And 4 sustainable cities. This is a very innovative window. You need investments in cities. Solid waste collections, eco-services, mobility, and then last but not least, digital. So these are the 5 areas where we will expect to come with proposals.
I believe that Africa has a lot beyond also our, let's say, contribution through this external investment plan. We are contributing also elsewhere. The Europeans are putting every year 20 billion just in development assistance. And as we said, this development assistance will increasingly be spent in order to leverage also private and public investment. I think that Africa has a lot of potentiality and asset already now. So I'm optimistic because I think there is also a youth which is aware of all this. Let's help in liberating this. Then let's see in 5 years, not only because of this plan, but because of a different way from the Africans to take in hand their destiny. And also to tell all those which are willing to help Africa to do what Africa needs, and not to be just listening to what big donors or big partners are willing to do. So in this balance, I think I'm fairly optimistic in 5 years that we can do better.
So the external investment plan has made some significant progress and is getting closer to reality. For the young African entrepreneurs who require patient capital and support for their businesses to achieve their full potential, how can the success of this plan change their lives?
Oh, I see Live Bank all over the world, not just in the continent. Because the problem we're trying to solve is not an African problem, right? It's a developing world problem. It's a problem in India, it's a problem in Mexico, it's a problem in Guatemala, it's a problem all over the developing world. Any continent, any country that has not developed has the same problem that we're trying to do. And I think our play is soft infrastructure, creating a soft infrastructure for the healthcare sector.
We see ourselves creating basically 10 million universities in Africa. Basically, if you have a box, you have something that can replace a university, because in a box you can have 300 courses. If you put that in one city or one house, you basically have a virtual university. So basically our goal is to be able to sell 10 million boxes within 5 years and be at least in 10 or to 20 countries all over Africa, from west to east to south.
If we have enough funding, I can tell you that we will be the next Alibaba of Africa. because we have all the program, the platform and the system are on the field. We only need some push-up to make this business great.
Currently, we are focusing on consumer product, electronics, computers. If you get funding, in the next 5 years, I see us doing the same thing for non-financial services and financial services as well. So I'm talking about insurance, mortgages, credit card, comparison.
Well, my hope is that this will contribute and underline contribute, because we must remain, let's say, humble in our approach, contributing to create sustainable jobs. You know, there is every year 10 million of new young people which are entering into the labor market, and there are 3 million of jobs which are created. Now, with the demography which is increasing, you know, if we don't create, if Africa do not create, say, 15, 20 million jobs a year, sustainable, not just undecent jobs, sustainable jobs, which can then support the whole society, there will be no hope. I mean, there will be, I don't know what, instability, there will be war, there will be movement of people, there will be more migration, there will be lack of perspective. Therefore, if we can give a contribution to create more sustainable jobs for youth and for women, this will be my great success.
Right, that's all we got time for on this CNBC Africa special in Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire. From me, Chris Bishop, it's goodbye.